Chances are you already know how beneficial taking off the week of your period can be for you and how resting and recharging during that phase can be so incredibly powerful. But chances are you are like most of the clients that I work with and myself who are busy. We have lots of things on our plate. We have soccer, we have businesses, we have maybe still a 9 to 5, we have life, we have kids, we have to get food on the table, all of these things. The belief or the idea that we could take an entire week off and just rest and recharge and recuperate ourselves maybe feels like a pipe dream. So, in this training, I'm going to show you exactly what real women are doing, those real busy women, and how they're actually making it possible for themselves to take that time to be able to rest and recharge and refuel themselves during that week of their period without letting all of the balls and all of the things in their life drop and fall apart. Hello, my name is Renee. I am a cycle syncing expert, feminine leadership coach. I'm also a breathwork facilitator and an occupational therapist. So I love digging into all of the science and the background of understanding our bodies and how that really impacts the way we show up, because women are not like men, and the way we show up and the way our bodies perform is very different than men. And understanding that can have vast ripples in the way that you show up for your business, for your family, for your life, and how much more balance, how much more ease, how much more flow, how much simpler everything can be. So I want you to walk away from this training with a plan, like understanding exactly how that can fit into your life, like how you can actually create more space and more rest during that week of your period, despite whatever obstacles, whatever the schedule might look like, whatever things you have on your plate, all the different hats and badges and things that we're wearing, because it is so vital. It is so vital that you create more rest and that you create more space if you want to be able to show up at your peak. Now, I will be fully honest, this video is not going to be just another self-care video, because who needs to hear more about self-care, right? For many years, I kept hearing about self-care. And honestly, I will admit that I was probably one of those people like champion, like women need more self-care. But if you're like me, we do not need anything more to add into the to-do list of things to do that into our world, into our life. Like, we need real tools, we need real strategies that are going to help alleviate those things off of our plate. But resting and recharging during the week of your period has to be a non-negotiable. It has to be something that fits into your life, not just because it's uncomfortable and that we don't like our periods and like sometimes we're experiencing pain and cramping and all of those types of things, but because it really does set you up for being able to perform better the entire rest of the month. Your period week is a powerful, powerful, powerful week. It sets you up for your peak productivity, because right after your period week is when your estrogen starts to climb and you become the most productive. I call it the accelerate phase into when you peak out at ovulation, because you're like checking off the to-do list, you're moving things forward, you're getting big projects done. Like, you can have so much effective productivity. But if you start that phase with only half a tank of gas, how far do you think you're going to be able to go? I talk a lot about the period week being your slingshot week, because when we think about a slingshot, if you don't pull the slingshot back, if you just like hold the rubber band, the rock doesn't fly very far. But if you pull that slingshot back, if you pull that rubber band, that slingshot can shoot so far. And so when we start to really just shift the lens of how we look at this week, and we see this week no longer as resting is just this lazy thing that we do, like resting is for the week, resting is like a negotiable thing. When we start to really layer in the fact that that week is your most powerful week, it is setting you up for everything that you're going to be able to get done the rest of the month. It is your slingshot week. So it is the week that is going to make or break what you're able to get done in the entire rest of the month. A lot of us have heard a lot of these motivational sorts of phrases and quotes around, we just have to push past the excuses, we just have to go and do when nobody else is willing to do it, we have to push harder, all of these things. But this phase is not the phase when we want to be doing that. This is the phase when we really do want to be listening in and trusting our bodies, because not only is this week the slingshot week, the week that really allows you to like recharge your batteries and shoot really far, but this week is your visionary week. So What that means, and if I were to go back and I talk about it being the recharge week all the time now, but if I were to go back and rename how I label all of it inside your Cycle Advantage, inside my programs, I would really call this week the Visionary Week, because it is an incredibly powerful time for helping you realign with your vision, with the intent that you have, with your plans, with what's in alignment for you, and really setting the stage for what you're going to execute the whole rest of the month. This is the week that takes business owners out of the busyness of the doing in their business and gets them back into that visionary hat, really setting the sights on where are we going and what are we doing. And I'll tell you what I've seen from the most successful entrepreneurs is that they're the ones that are getting back into this visionary space more frequently, more often than the ones that are stuck in the busy of doing everything. When we are stuck in the busy of doing everything, we can't always see where we're going and what we're doing and what we're creating. So getting back into this visionary space can be incredibly powerful to make sure that you're even on track for where you want to go. Or did you get distracted? Or are we caught in the busyness? So many entrepreneurs, especially ones that are working at home, we are stuck in the busyness. We are not actually moving the needle in our business and moving it forward in the way that we want to because we're just stuck in the tasks that are right in front of us. This period week, your menstrual phase, brings you back. It brings you back to that visionary space where you can tap back in. What is true and right for me? What is in alignment for me? What is that vision that I have? What do I need to do? What are my goals? What are my intentions? It's a recalibration phase, and it's incredibly powerful. So rather than necessarily seeing it as this lazy, worthless sorts of thing that we're doing absolutely nothing, what if we shifted the lenses and we just now started to see it as the visionary phase? It's the phase of the month where you create spaciousness in your life, you create stillness, you create this expansion so that you can tap back into that higher vision of where you're ready to go and what you want to create. When we think about it in that way, the things that we're doing in that phase are not necessarily resting on the couch and doing absolutely nothing, binge watching on social media. In fact, I tell you, I would recommend my clients all stay off of social media during that time. It's not a time when we are just numbing out and checking out, which is what a lot of the world does, right? The world has kind of conditioned us to believe that if we need rest and we need self-care, just take a break. Just go watch some Netflix, lay on the couch, play on your phone, do whatever those things. But those things are all just numbing you out. But rather, this phase needs to be focused on resting and true rest. What parts of you are tapped out? And how do you fill that cup, that bucket? And then number two, how do you recalibrate with that most aligned vision, that expansiveness that's for you? And the only way that we create that is by creating more space and stillness away from the business. So when we look at this week, it's not about just absolutely checking out and doing nothing. It is about what do we do to help protect that vision for you? What do we do? What do you need to be able to create that space so you can really tune inward and listen to that intuition? And for every woman, that's going to be different. I know a lot of my clients love meditation. They love getting out in nature, love breath work. They love being able to even just do yoga, but being very intentional during this phase that those are the types of tasks that you're doing. It's not just endless self-care of I'm going to go get myself a manicure, which is wonderful. I'm not dishing on manicures, but it's very intentional. It's very specific. Now, the second piece of this is we have to plan for this, right? If your period is next week and you're just I'm going to just take the week off, chances are there are going to be balls that drop. You can't necessarily just take a week off in a week from now and not have any plan set in place, right? We have to have a plan. And so one of the things I've noticed with cycle syncing is that it actually takes a lot of women out of this very reactive sort of state and puts them more in a proactive state. A lot of women are reacting to things that are coming at them all of the time, especially busy women, right? We have so many things that are just coming at us all of the time, and we're just constantly reacting and putting out fires all of the time. But when we're in that state of reaction, we're not actually proactively leading anything. We're not stepping forward with intention. We're not creating what we want. We're just responding to everything. And so by planning out your life according to your cycle and really mapping things out and really planning for it, it puts you back in this place of really, really, truly leading your life, leading your business, like leading and going after your goals. And so this is something that does take a little bit of planning and it does take a little bit of strategic maneuvering of your calendar so that you can take that space. Because chances are, if you're in business, like your business still needs to show up, your business still needs to move. You may still need to be posting on social media. You may still need to be sending out emails. You may need to be having things still moving in your business. That doesn't mean that you have to be doing it. You don't always have to be showing up. You don't always have to be in business. That's why there's so many amazing tools that allow you to schedule things out or have autoresponders or Zapier, having things zap on its own. Like there are so many tools and there's so many systems that you can put in place to make it so that you can step out of the business, but it is still running. So one, this element of like planning and having things planned, but also creating a structure. When I work with a lot of women, I talk a lot about like flow and ease and more of this femininity. But what happens, I think, in the contrast of that is that women will go so far into the flow and the femininity and the fluidity of just like doing at the whim of whatever they want to do, is that there is no structure. But when we look at like a river, or say like if I poured water on my table right now, if I pour the water out, it's going to disperse into 5 bajillion different spaces. It's going to go all over. It's just going to go half of it's going to go off one side of my desk, half of it's going to go off the other side of the desk. Some of it's going to end up in my lap. It's going to go all over the place. But if I created a little barrier, like if I took even Play-Doh, right, and made like a Play-Doh sort of barrier and then poured the water in, all of the water is going to funnel into the same direction. It's going to make a much more powerful flow than me just pouring it on my table right now. And I find that this is one of the pieces that's really missing for a lot of women is creating the structure and creating the plan that allows them that fluidity and the flow. So either A, women are trying to create these very rigid type structures that don't respond to where their body's at or the fluidity and the femininity that they have, or they're not creating them at all. And so having a plan and having the structure that's really set in place that's going to allow you to create this fluidity, to be able to take a step back, but still have things moving forward is going to be absolutely essential. Now, the last one is really to make sure that you have your boundaries set because it's going to be really easy for people to ask for things or want things or to be able to need things for you in that phase. And one, just understanding that that's where you're at in that phase makes it so much easier to set that boundary and be like, nope, not going to do it. But two, really strengthening that muscle of being able to set those boundaries and then also ask for help. So, what boundaries and how can you set that in your business, in your life, so that you do have that time and space? For me personally, I have the first 3 days of my period blocked out on my calendar every single month. I don't allow things to go in there inadvertently. Like maybe something happens if my cycle changes slightly or things like that. But otherwise, those first 3 days are sacred days. And I hold those as like, those are my days to create space for me to go do whatever I need to do to really even just create space that I need to recharge and refill my cup so that I can perform the best in the rest of the month. So, what boundaries do you need to set in place to make that possible for you? Maybe it's even just asking for help around the house. Maybe you have somebody else help make dinner. Maybe you order takeout. Maybe you use paper plates. Maybe like you give yourself the permission to not worry about the laundry for a couple of days. Maybe you let go of that guilt. I think this is one of the other things, like when we look at this phase, so many women carry so much guilt around this phase of feeling irritable, cranky, upset, whatever it might be, taking a nap, like feeling so guilty about taking a nap. But again, going back to that rewiring and recalibrating the way that we look at this phase is that it's not lazy. It's not something that we need to be guilty about. It's actually something that's empowering us to go so much further. And honestly, I like value the example that I get to set for my girls and my son even, that they have the power to be able to do that too. That they can set those boundaries and say, hey, mom needs a break today. I'm going to take a rest. Can you guys take care of this? Or do you want to come take a nap with me? My son loves that one. Don't tell him. But he loves when I say, do you want to come take a nap with mom? Because he loves coming and laying down with me. And say no without apologizing for things. Right? No can be a complete sentence. We see that all the time, right? You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to announce to the entire world that you're on your period and that you don't want to do it. You can just say, no, I don't have the energy for that. No, I don't want to do that today. No, thank you. Whatever it might be. Practice that ability to set those boundaries and know that they'll pay off for you in the long run. Now, I've got a few more tips I'm going to give you real quick. Before I do that, if you have not subscribed to the channel, do make sure you go over and do that if you want to learn more about how we actually lead our businesses as women, how we actually infuse more of our femininity, our cycle into the way that we show up and the way we work into every area of our life. Lastly, I've got a quick little rapid fire sort of tips here for you. One is just recalibrating, like we said, the way we look at rest. But rest does not have to be an all or nothing thing. I think oftentimes we think if I'm going to take a rest day, like I even talked about, like I carve out those few days. Sometimes we have that belief that it has to be an entire day or it has to be all of it or it's this big thing. But rest really comes down to a mindset shift. Almost anything that we do in our life can be restful for us if we choose for it to be restful. Someday I've got an idea of like wanting to create this meditation thing for moms that helps them really find ways to create meditation in all of the tasks that they do, because that's truly restfulness can be infused into every activity that we do. One, just by intention, even your dishes, like washing your dishes can be a restful activity if you choose it to be. It's all about the intention that we set with it. During that task, you could be sitting there and being like, I am so grateful that I get to feed my kids. I'm so grateful that I have food to put on these plates for my kids. I'm so grateful that I have running water. I am so grateful that I have hot water. I am so grateful that my body is able to stand right now. I am so grateful that I was able to even have the time to make dinner tonight. We can transform any activity in our world and in our life into something that is replenishing and restorative to us. And gratitude can be one of the greatest things you do. So infusing gratitude into anything. The other thing with that is that it may only be just a small little window of time. My goal for this year has been to meditate every single day. And I set the goal to be really small of like 5 minutes. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it might be. If I can even just carve out 2 to 3 minutes, that feels totally doable for me. I can make a restfulness space in my day for 2 minutes. I guarantee you can too. Like 2 minutes doesn't have to be that much, but you infuse these micro 2 minutes and 2 minutes and 2 minutes and 2 minutes all over the place, and you're going to feel like a completely different woman. That restfulness that can come for you in that phase can be incredibly powerful. One of the other things is just swapping some of the things that maybe you're doing right now to create a little bit more of that restfulness. So, for example, I love working out every day. It makes me feel so much better. But during that recharge phase, like during that restful phase, instead of working out and doing like a big hit workout or a cardio workout, I usually am going for a walk during one of my kids' soccer practices. So I take the dog and he and I go for a little walk. And instead of putting earbuds in and listening to music or listening to a podcast or any of that thing, I just leave the earpods out and I just walk. And I focus that time while I'm waiting at soccer practice, walking the dog, on how I can be completely present in the moment. Honestly, like the gratitude that I just talked about and being present in the moment, those two things combined, if you focus only on adding those two things into your recharge week, I guarantee you would feel more recharged. Creating more space, more gratitude, and more presence, that's all you need. That is all you need to make that week feel so much more recharging, so much more replenishable. Yes, all the other things I talked about, right? Creating the boundaries, creating the structure, creating the systems and things like that in place so that you can actually create more time off. But if you bring this intention into your week, I guarantee that entire week would shift everything. Without shifting anything in your calendar, you could literally create more rest and recharge in the space. And resting and what's going to feel like rest and what's going to feel like recharging is going to feel different for everyone. So make sure that give yourself the freedom to explore what that is for you. What is it that you need? What's going to refill your cup? What's going to restore you? For me, one of the practices I've been in the last couple of months is every night when I go to bed, I do a little bit of breath work. Some nights, like last night, I did 3 minutes, 3 minutes of breathing, 3 minutes of focusing on my breath. Other nights, I do 25 minutes. Other nights, I do 45 minutes. Some nights, I do 5 minutes. Sometimes it's 10 minutes, whatever it may be based on the capacity. But like, what is that thing that's going to be really recharging for you? For me, that makes such a huge difference. For me, taking care of my body and exercising makes such a huge difference. But maybe those things don't feel like recharging to you. So what is it for you? There was a season of my life where all I used to do was go out to my backyard and I would clip a single rose and I would come in and I would put it on the kitchen counter by a vase by my sink. And every time I washed dishes, every time I walked to the kitchen, every time I was cooking, I looked at that rose and I had that sense of, it's so beautiful. I'm so grateful I have a garden. I'm so grateful I have that rose in my kitchen. I love that beautiful thing, that beautiful rose. And even just that can be incredibly powerful. So don't necessarily look at rest as like, I have to lay on the couch and watch Netflix and do absolutely nothing. You have the freedom to do that and you want to do that, go for it. But know that those things are not necessarily the things that are going to recharge you and make you perform at your peak in the rest of the month. You deserve to rest. You deserve to recharge yourself. Your entire life will pay you back in so many ways if you take that time and space and you lay down that hustle sort of cape that we think that we're wearing and just take a little space for you. You'll become stronger. You'll become more creative. You'll be more clear. You'll have a more expansive vision. You'll be ready to take that big action. You'll be ready to take on whatever comes at you because no longer are you reacting to everything, but you're leading your life. You're leading everything. Now, I know I shared a lot in this episode and I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent because I just get so excited about this because the recharge phase is literally one of the most powerful phases. The second most powerful phase, or conversely, they both feed off of each other, is the luteal phase. The luteal phase and the menstrual phase are the two phases that most women hate. Most women wish they could get away with and not have, but yet they are our most powerful phases. They are our most expansive phases. The luteal phase helps open us up, release limiting beliefs and fears and blocks. There can be a whole nother video on that. And then the menstrual phase really helps us set in that clarity of where we're going and who we are and what we're creating and how we get in alignment with that and how we like restore our battery cups so that we're able to really take action after that and create movement with that and create the impact that we want. And so without those two phases, we are not operating our best. I feel like most women, you've just been taught to kind of blaze through them and that they're weaknesses. They're things that aren't really great for us. But I hope this video has kind of helped shift that lens for you. So what I would love for you to do today is walk away, look at like what of this that I've shared with you, you can take and start implementing this next month. How can you start creating that spaciousness? How can you start creating that intention around that restfulness and that recharging and that vision that the menstrual phase has to offer you?